Mr. President, how do you assess the 2 days later after the Minsk agreements, after the ceasefire, things didn't happen as smooth as it should have been, especially considering what's happening in Debaltseve. There is no ceasefire there at all. Thank you.
In general, first of all, we value the agreement achieved in Minsk very highly. Maybe not everybody has noticed, but what's very important is that Ukraine, the government in Kiev, has essentially agreed to carry out a comprehensive constitutional reform in the country so as to meet the request for a certain degree of autonomy, whatever you call it, devolution, decentralization, for certain regions of Ukraine. That is a very important and significant development and a significant step on the part of the Ukrainian government. But there is another side of this story, and that is since Donbass has agreed to participate on this track, that means we see a new movement, a new page in the history of Ukrainian statehood. Of course, the sooner they manage to achieve a ceasefire and the withdrawal of arms, the sooner there will be conditions and the necessary environment provided to have some real political solution in Ukraine. But as regards the military activities in Ukraine, we generally see a significant decrease in violence in the region. Even though I would like to note that even last time when President Poroshenko decided to resume military action and then halt it, that was not possible at once. And nowadays, it is evident that mutual airstrikes and artillery strikes along the entire line of contact decreased several-fold. Indeed, there has been violence around Debaltseve, but there have not been as many artillery strikes as before. And what's going on there is rather easy to explain, because a week before the meeting in Minsk, the Ukrainian military group around Debaltseve was surrounded, and I said that those within this pocket will try to break out, and those outside the pocket will try to relieve them, whereas the Donbass militias holding this circle, holding this pocket, will try to oppose that, and inevitably this will lead to some time being lost on violence and on mutual skirmishes. Today there was another attempt undertaken. I don't know whether that was reported on by media, but at 10 o'clock in the morning there was another attempt to relieve the Debaltseve pocket by the Ukrainian troops. It failed. I seriously hope that responsible officials in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian government, will not oppose Ukrainian troops from laying down their arms in Debaltseve, since Ukrainian officials cannot take it upon themselves to give such orders. For people who don't want to lose their lives, who are ready to lay down their arms inside that pocket. At the same time, I also hope that the government of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Lugansk People's Republic will not hold those people captive and will not prevent them from leaving the area of conflict and from going back to their families.
Mr. Prime Minister, would you like to reply? If not, then the floor is given to another question. Zoltan Shimon. Bloomberg. From your words, Mr. President, I understood that when the ceasefire agreement was signed in Minsk, and when you negotiated on that, you knew that this ceasefire would not take place at the time when it was scheduled. So, as you said, it was forecast, it was predicted that more clashes would happen, more violence would happen. Do you think that this violence will be over soon? And if you're optimistic about the ceasefire, the long-term fire, or are you rather pessimistic about it? Because if the hostilities continue, then the United States warned that they would supply their arms to Ukraine. How would you respond to that? How would Russia respond to that? And Mr. Prime Minister of Hungary, I would like to ask you, are there any other details in the gas supply agreement that you would like to share with us?
As regards the possible supplies of arms to Ukraine, as far as we know, arms have already been provided to Ukraine, so there is nothing special about that. Secondly, I'm deeply convinced that no matter what kind of weapons you provide to Ukraine, it is always bad to supply arms to an armed conflict. But no matter how many weapons you supply to Ukraine, the number of casualties may increase, but you will arrive at the same result at the end of the day as we have today. That is inevitable, because the absolute majority of Ukrainian troops, the way I see it, have no intention to participate in this bloodshed between two brotherly peoples, especially far away from home. Whereas Donbass militias are strongly motivated to defend their families, because everything that's going on there comes from a simple fact that the Ukrainian government, and I would like to remind you, have decided for the third time to resume military action and use the army. It was initially done by Mr. Turchinov, then acting president of Ukraine, who issued his decree on this anti-terrorist operation. Then President Poroshenko decided to resume military activity in the area, and now for the third time we see this happening. This will have no end unless the people, the decision makers in Kiev, arrive at the conclusion that there is no military solution, that there is only the path of negotiation and of providing the legitimate interests of the population. And this document that was signed in Minsk gives an opportunity for that. And I would like to note the role of the French president and the German chancellor in seeking compromise in Minsk. I believe such compromise has been found, and it can be confirmed by a UN Security Council resolution. As you know, Russia has brought this initiative to the floor. If that should happen, the Minsk agreement will become an international legal act. If not, still, this will remain a helpful document to be implemented in full. I am rather optimistic than pessimistic. I would like to emphasize once again that along the entire line of contact, in the contact zone, it is now relatively quiet. We need to finalize the situation with this surrounded Ukrainian battle group, and we need to make sure there will be no more civilian casualties. And we need to make sure that the relations between the official Kiev and the Donbass militias will not deteriorate even farther on. Of course, it is always painful to lose, especially when you're losing not to regular military, but to people who just yesterday used to be miners or truck drivers. But life goes on, and I believe you shouldn't really clutch to your old grievances of the past. I would like to repeat that the most important task is to save the lives of the people who are in the area right now. We must ensure that these people go home to their families alive, and we should implement the entire plan agreed on